Well, welcome back, everybody, for yet again another episode of the Never Broke Nation podcast.
Woo, woo, woo.
She's always entertaining. So I am one of your hosts, Janai Thornton, and this evening we have
Alicia Tillman
and Chris Hollis.
And so, of course, Never Broke Nation, where our goal, our focus is about helping people make, save, and grow their money.
Yes.
And so I'm really excited about today.
Me too.
You know,
I'm so excited.
I have to admit, there aren't many things that I kind of consider myself a novice at. Mm-hmm. When I tell you I don't know anything about this topic.
Yes.
What can I say I don't know anything about in the context of money?
Yeah.
So we have a special guest with us this evening,
Yes.
Marlon Burns.
Yes.
Hey,
Welcome.
everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome.
And we're talking about something very interesting today, which is bartering.
Yes.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it.
So, Marlon, I want to get your formal introduction right. Co-owner and marketing director of Ninth Grid Digital Marketing Company
Correct.
in Atlanta, Georgia.
That's right.
And then also the host of the Barter Scoop Insider Circle podcast.
Yes.
Yes. And so obviously you're not new to our podcasting world.
No, I've watched quite a few episodes.
Okay, good. But no, we're really excited to have you here because, we all know conceptually what bartering is, but I would never think in a million years that it related to me.
Yes.
Right.
I don't even know who I thought it related to. In fact, I kind of thought it was not even a previous generation, like a long time ago.
I think of cowboys when I think of bartering. You know what I mean?
Like biblical time.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like I would never think about it. So I'm gonna ask David to come in. So I like to tease my husband because he likes to consider himself pretty frugal. That's the word he likes to use.
Tight.
Tight is the kind of word that I like to use. Thank you very much.
I love that.
So, of course, he's on one of his favorite sites, Craigslist. Always trying to find a deal, always looking for something.
Yes.
And so he is on Craigslist. David, come around. And you were looking for what happened? What had happened?
Hey, folks. Now, as I usually do on Craigslist, like a lot of stuff that I buy for the studio and just whatever I do, the first place I check is Craigslist because you never know, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Right.
And
Preach.
I put in a search for actually some of these microphones here just to see if one comes up in case we need an extra one. And one came up, text back and forth. It was with Marlon. So he was like, hey, man, give me a call. We got on the phone. We're kind of talking about what we did. He asked what I was doing it for. And then he brought up bartering. And I usually, if I'm dealing with Craigslist, it might be a 5-minute call, if that.
Right.
We were like on the phone.
Tops.
So yeah, tops. We were on the phone. Once he got into it and started explaining it, I was like, man, what in the world? So that's kind of how we started this conversation. And now, it's been a relationship that we've really grown. So I think he has a lot to bring to this conversation.
And then will you just mention one last thing when you talked about the marketplace of Craigslist for bartering? What did you share with us as we were
Well, that's what
prepping
he could talk more about that he was saying that bartering is one of the largest,
Fastest growing segments of Craigslist is the barter section. If you look on there, it's constantly being people are constantly posting new things from boats to cars, trucks, all sorts of widgets and whatnots. You can find and not just all like you said, one man's junk is the next man's treasure, but there's some really good stuff on there as well. Now, mind you, they're going to want something good in return.
Sure.
But you can find a lot of opportunities on the Craigslist barter section.
Yeah.
Did you all know that you could barter on Craigslist before?
No.
Like who knew?
Facebook as well.
You can barter on Facebook.
Well, Facebook has a marketplace
Yes.
now, and a
Right.
lot of your groups. And I actually like Facebook better because you can kind of look at the person's profile
Right.
and see a little
Check
bit
them
more
out a little
about
bit
them,
more.
and even
Okay.
narrow them down geographically to if they're only 20 miles away versus. So with Craigslist, sometimes you might contact someone and you don't know if they're 100 miles away, and then
Okay.
you don't want to meet for something that's $20
Right.
and drive 100 miles.
Right.
So what exactly is bartering and how did you get started in it?
Great question. Bartering is pretty much the exchange of one thing for another. Just like cash, we've actually replaced, when it was just bartering, we used cash as that means of exchange. So let's just say when you were talking about biblical times or back in the day, if I wanted your watch and in exchange, you may say, hey, I want your cow. Well, my cow might be worth 10 times what your watch is worth. And I may not be ready to process the cow right now, cut it all up and get it ready. So cash ended up making it easier for us to do that sort of transaction, but still it's an exchange. Bartering is just an exchange from one thing to the next. How did I get started? They say necessity is the mother of all skills.
Yes.
Right.
Mother creation,
Well,
creative things.
I got 6 children.
Okay.
So when you're learning how to make $1 do the work of 10,
Yeah.
you learn how to be creative. I bartered when I was young, but it wasn't until I got older and in business that I saw how it could be used on various levels to be able to accomplish things that for some people might have seemed difficult, or they only thought about, I don't have enough money to do this. Well, if you don't have enough money, money is just one form of currency. There's many currencies, and you just have to tap into them.
Many currencies.
Well, it sounds a lot like trading. Are they interchangeable? Or are they the
That's
same?
correct. Trading.
Okay.
So it is the
Really
exact
is-
same thing.
It's the exact same thing.
Okay.
So trade. Well, like trading one thing for another, not like trading stocks. But I know that's not what you're talking
Right,
about.
right.
But yeah,
Bartering is like
trading.
trading. Got it.
And so, is there like a formal barter exchange? Like, what does that mean?
Well, in the U.S., you have over 200 barter exchanges, and they're groups of businesses that actually trade and network with each other. So, like if you had a Walmart gift card,
Right.
that Walmart gift card wouldn't be good at Target.
Right.
In the trade exchanges, you may have a trade exchange like in Atlanta, like Barter Company or Trade Bank. And if you belong to one of those networks, you will earn trade dollars in that network that you can spend with anyone inside of that network. I'm almost sure you've been to a business and they've had a sticker there. You just might not have known what it was for. But these businesses are trading with one another through trade currencies and or barter dollars. And as they work with each other in the area and they grow, then the opportunities actually grow for people who are members of those exchanges. Worldwide, you have probably about 600 or 700 of them, but in the U.S. you have over 200
No.
barter exchanges.
What is an exchange?
A barter exchange is, well, you have retail and commercial. A retail barter exchange is pretty much comprised of small businesses, plumbers, electricians, restaurants, hotels, transportation, marketing, web design, printing, television, so on and so forth. Commercial is just pretty much transportation, marketing. When I say commercial, I mean like it's kind of the same, but the deals are a lot bigger. So you might have a commercial exchange do $1 million or $10 million media deal, whereas a retail exchange will, it pretty much deals with services, products and services. And both of them kind of work, the commercial and retail work together interchangeably. Hope I'm answering.
But is it exchange kind of like where people just come together to do it?
Let's say, I'm sorry.
Like an exact. Give us
An
like
example.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So can I use the bottle of water?
Of course.
All right. This is a barter exchange right here.
Okay.
What they'll do is they'll go out and sign up members, like a plumber, a restaurant, a hood cleaner. And when they're signing up members, they're thinking about it from the standpoint of how these members can interact with each other. So if you have a restaurant, they may need a hood cleaner or window cleaner or aprons printed. So they'll get auxiliary services that will all become members of this barter exchange. Once they're members of the barter exchange, the restaurant will let you come in there and purchase food with your barter card or your trade card or your credits. And then in exchange, they give you the food. Once the restaurant has money, then they're able to spend their money with the hood cleaner inside of the network.
But what do you mean by money? So it's not actual dollars being exchanged.
Not dollars, but it's
Value.
It's value, but they call them trade credits or barter dollars. It's still a currency that's kept up. In fact, that's kept that they keep track of. the Tax Equity Financial Responsibility Act of 1982 was when they actually made it legal for barter exchanges to exist, so that a barter transaction would actually be taxed the same way as a cash transaction.
And so just to kind of go with your example just a little further, so if I'm the hood cleaner, I get to go to that restaurant, patronize it, I use my card, I eat there, I don't spend money with them, right?
No, you just spend your trade credits.
I spend my credits, and then somehow the system is keeping up with the credits. Then when it's time for them to order aprons or get their hood clean, they'll contact me, and we could look at the credits that I've already spent.
Correct.
Versus the value of the service that I could potentially provide for them.
Right. So,
therefore, there's no money exchange.
Correct. So if you charged $100 in credits
right.
To clean the hood, then then you go to the restaurant, you spend $100 with the restaurant. Now the restaurant has $100 in credits that they can turn around and go spend their $100 in credits with anybody else inside of the network.
So they don't have to spend it with me.
No. That's referred to as indirect trading.
Mama, I want to be like, who's auditing this?
So you can directly barter or trade,
right.
But then you can be, if you're part of a network,
you can indirectly
barter
and trade. The software that they use, like that, they call it Tefra for short, but the softwares that they use is actually how they keep up with the transactions. So
that's how you keep up with the barter credits.
With the credits, right. Okay. So you have an account that you log in. Like a bank, exactly. Right. And that's what Tefra pretty much did, is it gave them their ability to be third-party record keepers, similar to a banking institution. They're not regulated under all of the finance regulations, but they're third-party record keepers to keep up with these transactions. So you still have your debits and credits, but it's all bartering.
I'm like, is the barter credit like what do you call it? FDIC? Are they supported? Are they backed by anything?
No,
it's not that technical.
No,
right?
Not yet.
Got it.
Not yet. But I think those sorts of things, may be coming.
So let's kind of go back, kind of like from a historical perspective, because we talked about in the opening of bartering being a thing that we thought about that, happened a long time ago before currency.
Right.
So people didn't have a choice. So as currency got introduced, kind of explain, was it farmers, business people? Has it always just been happening and we just been out of the loop? Like kind of a little bit more of a historical perspective.
Well, yeah, it's always been happening. You had, at one point you had grain was a form of currency.
A currency, right.
So or shekels, and then as it progressed, and then we went into paper currency to make the transactions easier, because governments and sovereigns, they never stop bartering. They still barter to right now. They just call it counter trade. So they're still trading with each other. And, so when you have any of your big deals, whether it's oil for wheat or whatever the case, land, or we want a company to come here and we're going to give them land in order to bring their employment, all of that's still exchange. It's not done with currency. It's done with trade deals. So it's happening, and we participate in it. We've gravitated more towards just cash or credit as being our only means of exchange, and it's not the only means of exchange. Bartering is definitely happening. In fact, you have other countries, like in Greece, they've instituted something called TEM units, TEM units, because if you live in Athens, you have some resources because money flows into Athens.
Right.
But if you're on the outskirts, money is not flowing into the outskirts the same way. So you have a lot of talented people, and same way you do here in this country as well, but you have talented people on the outskirts that are having to find ways to exchange with each other. So they're using the TEM units or barter credits to be able to do deals with each other, to go to the farmer's market and get eggs, or the electrician might do something for someone else to be able to have a way to keep up with their exchanges right now.
So how can a business become someone who gives barter credits or become a part of this whole like accept bartering for a form of payment?
You can either join one of the barter exchanges that already exist, or start your own. But if you join one of the barter exchanges that already exist, they have built-in networks, so it's a lot easier to get inside of a network, see how it works, start small, and go and grow from there.
So like if you're on a network, then like what, you get put on a list of companies who accept it or something like that, so people know they can go to your business?
They have a directory. That's exactly right. They'll have a directory. They'll promote you to the members, and what they get is a cash transaction fee. So if you spend $1,000,
how do they get
right?
money?
Exactly. If you spend $1,000, they may charge 10% in cash to be a part of the network. That's how most of them work.
So the banking part of it, they actually get cash.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. For being a part of the network, that's what they charge.
Gotcha.
So if you do belong to a barter exchange and you're paying a transaction fee, you want to make sure that you're maximizing what they're supposed to do for you, so that you're not just paying to just be a part of the network. Ideally, you would have a list of things that you're spending cash on that you would want them to spend energy and effort to go out and find, so that they can bring those things back to you, so that you are able to trade for those.
So I'm curious, based on your experience with bartering, give us an example of some actual exchanges that you've seen that will kind of bring this to life for us. Like, you've seen people exchange, barter, or trade what for what.
Okay, you might have, there's I'll give you an example that if you've driven downtown Atlanta, I don't know if you've seen those billboards with the hair restoration, the before and after the hair restoration.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the installation of those billboards, he paid cash. The company paid cash to do that, but the monthly maintenance fee on all of those billboards, and it's got to be at least 20 of them, is traded for hair restorations, for media. So the hair restoration company may offer, seems like I probably need hair restoration, but the hair restoration company may do a service for, let's just say, $5,000.
Okay.
They may trade $100,000 worth of hair restoration certificates in exchange for media, billboard space, television, magazine, whatever which in turn drives cash business, because the people riding down the street have no idea that that's even happening.
Right.
Another example would be, we did a deal with a gentleman, and we traded some restaurant equipment that came from a liquidation in exchange for rafting certificates. And these are direct trades. These aren't through exchange.
Okay.
Now, with the billboards, that's most likely through an exchange, because the exchange makes it easier when you're doing indirect. So if you have something I want and I don't have what you want, but if I can get it from her, the exchange barter networks make it easier to do those sorts of things. But when when it's mutual, it makes it a lot easier to be able to pull it off faster. So in this example, we traded some restaurant equipment for rafting certificates, a lot of rafting certificates, and then
Rafting, like whitewater,
like whitewater rafting.
Okay.
I love whitewater. Anybody ever been?
You are the first man of color that I have ever heard that come out of their mouth.
I love whitewater rafting too.
When you and it's interesting that you say that. The very first time when we were going, I said to myself, I said, man, black people we don't do this.
No, we everywhere.
Yeah. But when you go one time,
Right.
you're hooked.
Yeah.
Right.
You're hooked. I mean, it's.
So what levels do you do?
I did classic 3, level 3 and 4.
Oh wow.
So, and that was a test question too.
It's legit, Chris. That's legit. It's legit. Okay. I just want to make sure you verify that.
It was some 2s, but it was mostly 3s, and I fell out.
I've never fell out.
Yeah, the very
before,
first time I fell out, I was
jumped out.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
It's scary to fall in.
Yeah.
But with the rafting company, what we did was we traded them. We traded they were looking to open up a like a restaurant, not a full, but for the people that were coming to go rafting, because it's in Ocoee, Tennessee.
Okay.
One of my favorites.
There's not a lot right there
Right.
in that particular area, so they wanted to open up their own restaurant. So we worked out a deal for the rafting certificate. So he got the equipment, and we got the rafting certificates, and I traded 400 of those rafting certificates to a radio network in Atlanta for $25,000 worth of radio advertising that we ended up trading to a place that has resorts in Bryson City, North Carolina, that they use the radio advertising to advertise and for a resort space to be able to do some other things.
So how do you determine, you said $25,000, how do you determine value when it comes down to bartering?
Okay, so just like you would in cash, and that's one of the most important things. Treat every barter transaction as you would a cash transaction. Mm-hmm. So the restaurant equipment had a value, his rafting certificates had a value as well. So we actually traded the rafting certificates for 2 to 1. So for every rafting certificate, we got $2 for every $1 worth of restaurant certificates, restaurant equipment, because the rafting certificates were less valuable than the restaurant equipment.
Which makes sense, right?
So I got him to give me twice as many rafting certificates as, and it was a pretty decent number. And in order to do that, you have to know the value of the restaurant equipment and the value of, in that case, the rafting certificates were like $60 for a what they call a classic middle, which is like 3.5 hours or something like that. It was like $60 each.
So I guess it's easier to determine the value of like an item, but like services, how is that measured? As like when you're trading items versus services?
If it's like, let's just use a massage therapist or someone like that. If their hourly rate is $100 or an hour or $50 an hour, you still would equate it the same way. So if they wanted let's just say they wanted, the iPhone, the iPhone X, and it was $1,000, it'd be 10 hours worth of services. The same way. If you always look at it as you would cash, you're gonna always be right. Now, if you don't know the value of something or what the other person is, whether the other person is charging something that's fair or not, then you have to kind of just.
Is there a way to appraise that, or like someone who regulates that?
Inside of the networks, no. It would be pretty much market price. I would, if I was going to get a service, I would see what the market price was on
where
something.
You could get it someplace
just
else.
to get a ballpark on what it's worth. That's what I would do.
It's interesting though what you just said when you talked about the restaurant equipment. Since I guess that's a tangible asset, the value of that, although it's still in dollars, you still wanted 2 to 1 based on the rafting. You know what I mean? The certificate. So is it just, are you valuing it differently? Because again, a tangible asset versus time, like although they charge $60 per, it really doesn't cost them it's not $60.
Right. And that's a important point that you're making is knowing, having researched what it is that you're about to partake in.
Okay.
So in that example, I know that he leases the river. All of the people in that area, all of those outfitters lease the river. Yeah, they lease access to the river. So he has to pay.
That makes sense, though.
He has to pay the same amount to lease that space, regardless of whether he does a deal with me or not. And in his mind, he's probably thinking that 30% of the individuals you issue your certificates to aren't going to even come, never going to show up.
I can see that being very good to do during a slow season too. Like that's a way, if you're down, you don't, wintertime, cooler months, that's a way of using what you already have to get something new that you don't have.
That's right. And also crowds beget crowds. So if he starts seeing a lot of people coming to people riding by, like, whoa, what's going on over there? And they see an influx of individuals coming to this particular location, then they start thinking that, they have something going on. So in bartering, we like to say either everyone wins or no one wins. So you want to always strive for like win-win. So I knew for him, it would make sense for us to have people coming to his location. He didn't have to pay any more money than what he was already paying.
Right.
The individuals that would come, his
right.
costs were fixed.
Right.
So the individuals that were going to come were going to tip his guides.
Right.
So this was more tipping opportunities for his employees, which helps with. So it was all the way around the board. And I also knew that he really wanted the restaurant equipment.
Right.
Okay.
But I knew that rafting certificates was going to be something that would be more challenging to get rid of than the restaurant equipment had its own challenge
Right.
to it in the beginning, which is why we considered rafting certificates. But
and that's kind of marketing for him too, because you went and put his
name out there
in different areas that he probably wouldn't have been able to reach.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so.
And people who never had been rafting before
Right.
have gone and probably have gone back. I mean, we had quite a bit of rafting certificates.
Right.
I would have took it.
Interesting.
I still have a
do
few.
you have any
I know, right?
What can I trade for that?
light bulb?
If David promises to take everybody rafting, I'll get y'all all rafting certificates.
David.
David.
Come on, David.
David, you got to ride the bull if you go.
Come on now. For listeners who know nothing about bartering, want to learn something, what's a great resource? Website, book, like where should people go to learn?
I would recommend they go to barterscoop.com.
Come on,
Yes.
That's what
Better put that plug in.
that's why I would recommend them go. I would recommend go to barterscoop.com. There's a lot of articles in various examples. Like an article I think I shared a couple of days ago in Tennessee. They just passed a healthcare bill that is making it lawful for doctors or healthcare physicians to be able to barter with uninsured patients. So they're able to pay in some sort of barter or service. This was
Right.
just like a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
And, so there's many things, there's articles like that, but barterscoop.com, or tune in to Barter Scoop Insider Circle, which is our podcast.
Yes.
There you go. I'm so proud of you right now.
Because I was going to say, so for people who want to get in touch with you, Marlon, want to follow you, listen to your podcast, the website, are you active anywhere else on social media?
Facebook, facebook.com/BarterScoop, twitter.com/BarterScoop, hashtag BarterScoop on Instagram. I guess that's how you look it up on Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Pretty much anywhere you would find, listen to a podcast, or iHeart, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes. If I didn't say that already, you'll be able to find it. You'll be able to find the show.
Well, we thank you for being on the Never Broke
Yes,
Nation
thank
podcast.
you.
I appreciate y'all having me.
Absolutely.
This was exciting for me as well. I've watched the videos. I tried to prepare. I saw the boot camp videos and everything.
Oh my God.
I looked at everything. I spent a little bit of time getting familiar.
That is
Y'all are doing an excellent job.
Thank
well,
you.
we appreciate
Thank you.
that. And we really, like I said, you're really helping us spread the message of make, save, grow.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you.
A
for,
different way to make
I
save
know,
and grow.
very different way. We got some work to do, ladies.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you again for coming, Marlon.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.